This is the Pro Perspective from Houzz Pro, where home builders, designers, and industry experts share their views on running a modern firm.
On today's episode of the Pro Perspective, I'm speaking with Hendy, CEO of Neal's Design Remodel in Cincinnati, about how he continues to guide his 53-year-old family-run firm from the first to the third generation. If you haven't heard of a family charter, you'll want to listen in. We talk about how culture and training impact sustainable growth and retention, and why he believes developing his team's soft skills is key to growing future leaders. Hi, everyone. I'm Liza Hausman, and welcome to the Pro Perspective. I'm very excited to have with me today Hendy, CEO of Neal's Design Remodel in Cincinnati. Welcome, Alan.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Happy for you to be here. And, I'm really excited about our topic today, which is, multi-generational businesses and how great leaders set up their businesses to be a success in a multi-generational situation and set up not just, the next generation, but the entire company and all of the employees for success in that type of environment. So maybe we could start with just a little bit of background on your business. You're obviously in Cincinnati, but tell us a little bit about the types of projects that you do and how you got started.
Well, thank you. We are Neal's Design Remodel. Neal is my dad's first name. He started the company 53 years ago out of necessity. He had 6 kids and didn't have any money, so it had to work. So the first generation, like most of these, came out of complete necessity. We are a full service design build, 49 employees. We do right about 15 or 16 million a year and have been on a pretty good growth path. I am generation 2, so I'm the youngest of 3 brothers, 2 of which have already retired. So we are through generation 1 to 2, and now generation 2 is beginning to retire as of 2 years ago, and generation 3 is here in the form of my nephew, Mike, who's been here since 2008, and then my son, Jimmy, who's 28, who's been here for the last 5 years. And
you and your brothers all worked in the business, is that right?
Yes, so we had 4 brothers total in the family. I have 1 brother that didn't work in the business. The other 3 did. Okay. My dad was very nervous about having a lot of kids and mouths to feed inside the business. So I was the last one to come in. I did not take this job out of college, so my other 2 brothers had taken it. My 1 brother came here maybe 5 years into the business. In 1977, he was just graduating from college and came into the business directly. His name is also Neal. So then my brother Steve came in the mid-'80s, and I came in the early 90s, 1993.
So you've had 2 transitions from your father to you and your brothers, and then obviously from you to the next generation. Let's talk a little bit about the differences that you had in those transitions. Maybe we can start with generation 1 to generation 2. Tell us a little bit about that.
Pretty smooth, not too bad. Inside the family, my 2 brothers, as I said, were already in it. I was getting in it by way of other jobs. I was very sure I would never work here. So sure, I told my dad I would never work here. When I came into the business, it was on a growth path somewhat. The 80s were a little rough, certain parts of the 80s, and then they grew at the end of the 80s. So I think getting generation 2 in here was a matter of hitting the right glide path for growth. And that worked out pretty well with our skill sets and what we did. We were all a little bit different. Everybody was required to sell inside of that. Our time at that time, we were trying to grow. So you had to learn, how to come in and do those things. We had to really, it's harder as a family member. It always is harder as a family member where you're expected to be looked at a little bit differently than a regular employee. So my dad did I think a very nice job with us of getting that expectations right for us, to make sure. So generation 1 to 2 is generally pretty easy. You don't want to disappoint your dad or your mom. And, you know that there's a lot on the line. We were a smaller company back then, $2, $3, $4 million company and on the growth path. Generation 2 to 3, I think, is a lot more difficult. At that point, you have spouses, you have grandparents, you have uncles, you have all these different folks looking at it from different places. So I think that is a much trickier transition to make sure that people can retire comfortably, and that the business itself doesn't suffer anything in form of payouts or large debt or what everybody's expectations are for getting in and out. So I think that is really critical. Is the business in a tough spot when you're trying to do that transition? Is the business in a great spot when you're trying to do that transition? Those things can make it harder. I do think it matters a lot whether or not we have good marriages, for instance. So if you have divorces through inside the family, those kind of things can affect the business greatly. Um, we've always been able to tell our folks here that work for us that there's good marriages. We haven't had any of those kind of things hurt the business or affect the everyday parts of the business. We set up what's called a family charter in 2015. It is designed to really, it's kind of like a family business constitution, if you will, but it is designed to outline three really important items. What does it mean to be in this family? What are our core values? What are we all about? What's important to us? It is very interesting to talk about the business values and the family values and to see if they actually line up. That's an interesting thing as well. But it tells you what it means to be in a family, what the business is doing at this time, and what it means to get in the business, whether or not you're invited in, and how do we mentor people. And the third item it covers is ownership. What does it mean to be an owner versus in the business? So those things are distinctly different when you think about it. So that helped us clarify a lot of things that kind of went unsaid. Some things go unsaid on why it happens. Do I get a company car? All those kind of, I'm going to call them little things, but they're kind of things that can cause gigantic issues inside the family and the business.
So tell me a little bit more about when did you set up the family charter? What was the impetus to do it? And did you put that together yourself or did you bring someone in to help with that?
Yeah, I have a dear friend, Roger Hannickman, who facilitated. We did 3 meetings. In our case, we wanted to make sure that everybody who had an interest had a presence in that meeting, so that we had somebody from the family there. We had some people from the business in that, and some of the leadership as well, so that you weren't just kind of pre-writing a document that was a rubber stamp type of thing. It truly had the interest of everyone in mind. So 3 meetings. The document, we had seen some local, very successful family businesses with multi-generational transitions using these. So we decided we would use one. I thought it'd be a nice gift for my parents. I'm very fortunate. My parents are 93 and 91 years old.
Wow.
They have been married 70 years. They'll be married 71 years in November. So they've been around a long time. They've been through it all. My dad has been, before this business started, they were bankrupt. They had been through some difficult things. So we went through a session, created the document. There's a lot to that I'd be glad to explain to anybody, but it's really not that difficult. It just needs to be done in the right fashion. I think it's better to facilitate that than try to do it on your own, for sure. Once we were done, we invited everyone in the family and their spouses away for a weekend. We had a very nice dinner. And at one point, Roger, who put the document together with us at dinner, started to bring up family stories. And that's where everything comes from is, I noticed that he did this with, I think I knew he was going to do it, but he set a little recorder down and started to ask my parents questions about their parents and about our family and about the businesses inside this family over the years. And what we quickly realized, we kind of had the script for a family history, but we quickly realized that all of these grandparents were entrepreneurs. All of them had tried and failed. All of them had done all kinds of good decisions and bad decisions. And so we really tied this document to a family history after dinner. I thought that was cool. We didn't see the printout of that until much, much later. But then it also lets everyone, including spouses at the table, ask questions if they have a question about something and, find out maybe where the issues are or give people a really comfortable place to bring them up. You don't want to do a family charter if your business is in trouble. This is not something to fix issues. It's something to, in a well-run family business, to continue to have success is what I would say. And that's how we treated it. There were some family issues that needed to be resolved in ownership. Those were able to at least be discussed civilly. Because you and I know that without a forum like this, it's somebody at the kitchen table telling their kids something. It may not be true. It may be kind of true. It may have some spin. It may, not really be accurate. So all those things kind of flushed out. My brothers and I and our family, we get along really well. We have had things before that we have to iron out, but the charter just gave us a way to do that without ruining Thanksgiving.
Which is so important. And actually, that kind of makes me think. You mentioned you never had any intention of joining the business, and yet here you are as CEO. What changed, and how did you end up in this position? And yeah, I guess whether it's this charter or something else, how does that dynamic with your brothers? How did that work, and what was that transition like?
Yeah, I really wanted to pursue a career in finance. My background was finance, so I wanted to be in banking or I wanted to work on Wall Street. I had glorious ideas of what to do. For me, by way of a couple other I was very glad to have worked outside the business, both in big companies and in smaller regional companies. But I learned a lot. For instance, I went to work for a local insurance company, became insurance underwriter, commercial lines, and I learned a lot about insurance. I use that today being CEO. I'm able to read our policies, and one of my clients is our insurance agent, and he knows that I was an underwriter. So kind of using that. The way it worked with my brothers when I came back in first was, is this a good fit? Will Allen work inside the business? Can he sell? How good are you with navigating being a family member with long-standing employees that have been there a long time, that are going to have kind of a very close eye on you? They're watching you very carefully. So you have to navigate that. For my brothers and I, what really changed for us was 2008 was difficult for everybody in the industry. We weathered that and came out of that and went to a place called Aileron in Dayton, Ohio. Actually, it's called Tip City. And Aileron is a wonderful place. If people look it up at aileron.org, I believe. We went there for what's called the President's Course. And we came out, we had a great facilitator. He was so nice, but he looked at us and he said, "You guys are a three-headed monster." We were on one of the breaks and we're kind of looking at each other going, we are a three-headed monster. Because all of us at that time just sold work. Let's just sell more work. Go, go, go. Sell, sell, sell. But who's running the people parts of the business? Who is recruiting and keeping talent? Who's doing all the reviews? That really was it didn't have a home, and we were all doing it a little bit differently. So if you wanted a good answer on vacation, you could talk to my brother Steve and talk to him about vacation time. If you wanted to talk to production issues, you could talk to my brother Neal about that. So they came out of that, and I thought it was wonderful, but they looked at me and said, "You're really good on the people stuff. Why don't you be the CEO? Why don't you run this?" So that time, my nephew had been here for about 4 years, and he came in 2008, couldn't find a job, and it was just a great fit for him to come here. And he was getting to know things. So I worked on beginning to get rid of my book of business and give that to him and get him up and running as a good salesperson. That is one of the keys. You got to work yourself right out of a job as you take different positions in the company. And I miss selling. I haven't sold much since 2014. So over a 2-year period, I gave him my book of business, and he's now our top salesperson. Is doing very well. So we looked at what the company needed at that time and made a change.
It's a nice vote of confidence from your brothers, even if it was the right thing and everybody was able to, you know, focus on their strengths. That's a nice dynamic and a nice thing to have it happen within the family. That transition of your book of business to your nephew, it sounds like you also helped him learn to be a good salesperson. As you stepped into the CEO role, I know being a good manager is a priority for you, and building a good culture. How did did you already have these skills, or did you have to learn to be a CEO, and how did you do it?
Oh my gosh. My dad was a great person to watch. I'll just start with that. He was just he's a gentle, mentoring, great leader. He's not overbearing. He's always made it about everybody else and not him. So
Mhm.
the blessing was being his kid and growing up with him, watching him, not just in the business, but as a great dad. So I would say reading great books. For me, Maxwell was a big one for me. I think the 5 levels of leadership. I have a whole list of amazing books that my mentors have shown me. So that really, and then I think also in practice, having a board of advisors with you. So I was not sure how to do this job. My dad had been president, my brother had been president, but when you're growing, it's sort of all hands on deck, right? And so you don't really have a tremendous amount of time to break out all the people stuff. But sitting here with almost 50 people in here, we have to spend a lot of time now. I look back retrospective, it's just how much time we spend acquiring talent, training talent, and recruiting talent. So that was something I loved to do. And I don't think I knew that until later. I never told my brothers that, but I think they knew I didn't. Put it this way, the people stuff didn't drive me crazy. That was
Okay.
it was a pretty it was a and they were just like, we want to continue doing the stuff we love. You're good at it. So, maybe them telling me that and giving me the confidence that felt really good. But I think reading and then having a board that's watching you do this, that says, hey, you need to pivot. You need to do this, was also helpful.
Yes, I think that's super interesting in a family business and really for any business to have some external perspectives. I know a lot of people maybe just have, colleagues or other folks that they rely on for another perspective, but you actually went and built a board of advisors
Right.
specifically to kind of help you fill in the gaps. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that. Are there any people on your board in particular that have shaped how you talked to all the time and effort you put into how you hire and what you hire for. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, they were extremely helpful. My biggest mentor in business was on that board. He has nothing to do with our industry. Hiring a board is really find what you're really terrible at. Find the things you're not good at, and then make those people that specialize in that be your board. So if you're really good at HR and you're really bad at production, or you're really bad at something else, you need a fresh set of eyes. So I had somebody from manufacturing on my board, a guy named John Campbell, a dear friend, who was outstanding at advising a construction company, even though he was in manufacturing. My favorite was Dr. Linda Gravitt. She was an institutional psychologist at a local Xavier University here in Cincinnati, had written some amazing books. Well, Linda came in and really started to get under the details with me about people and hiring people. So testing for emotional intelligence, kind of emotional mastery. How good are your people at the hard things? This is the foundation of what you do when you have leadership inside the company and you hire people. Because as you grow, you're not going to be able to do everything. You need the technical skills to come. Linda taught me how to set up competencies for all the positions, not just what technical skills we need. First, she had me write a job description or a role description for every job we had. And then, what will you be at 20 million or 15 million? I'd like you to write those descriptions out and what you think that's like. And then she just kind of ran through and helped me understand why that's important. So a list of competencies. Let's take our production staff. From your production staff, you've got runners and people that are on the trucks. You've got people that are in training to learn how to be carpenters. You've got people that are lead carpenters. You've got production managers. So how do those soft skills change from the guy driving the trucks to all the way up to the person running the department? What are you stacking those skills on top of one another to do to get people to manage other people well? And that's the whole trick, is developing people, is teaching them to lead other people. And that's all about soft skills. That is all about self-awareness and emotional mastery. It's about being able to be in a tough situation and control your compulsive behavior if you've got a difficult client, or if you've got a difficult person you work with in the company. Those are the things that Dr. Linda Gravitt taught me on the board. I knew nothing about that. I don't have formal training on that. but I started to at least understand it. And then each time the board met, which would be 3 times a year, I could tell her about the next people part or whatever. So over a 10-year period, I learned a lot from my board, and they pushed me hard. Yes, they want to see financials. They want to see your operating expenses. They want to see all that stuff. But on the people development, I really worked hard on that with them.
It's so interesting because I one of the things that stood out for me in what you said is you said the hard things. People have to be able to do the hard things. And I think maybe people might have a different idea of what the hard things are, but it sounds like, for you, the hard things in a design build company are more those softer skills, right? That folks can come in with those technical skills, but the soft skills are often the hard things, the people things. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, I think there's two things, emotional mastery and then personal growth. Like they're kind of different. So in emotional mastery, you've got to be able to resolve conflict and be a really good mediator, for instance. You've got to be able to motivate your team. You've got to be able to, like I said, control compulsive behavior, be able to be really good on your feet with a tough client or a cabinet order that ends up wrong that's getting delivered in front of you for your deadline. That's the emotional part of it. I think personal growth is a little bit different, but each person that works at our company has a personal growth plan. They have an individual development plan, and it has a budget. It has training that they need. It has other things that they need. So let's say we want a lead carpenter who's just starting to be a lead carpenter to learn how to take on bigger projects, $1 million projects, $500,000 projects. What skills are necessary for them? Technical skills. Okay, they got to be able to lay these things out. They got to be able to understand these jobs. That's number one. So what are we doing to make sure they've got that experience, opportunity, and training to get to that point? Then you've got, these larger projects are a lot more difficult to run. It's kind of the emotional part of things is one thing, but personal growth is sort of facing your fears, making sure that if you have to let someone go, how do we do that? How do you build a management team that understands how to do that in our culture? I think in our culture, it might be different than other cultures, but we have a certain way and a process that we go through of developing people or letting people go that are on our team or recruiting them to be a bigger part of our team. So that growth and leadership has got to be outlined and defined really well. And my goal was to get a management team comfortable doing that. I think if you are the CEO and you dominate every one-on-one conversation with every employee and you want to be the man, or the person that is in charge of their future, that is good for a while. That's very good. It has to happen. But as your company grows, you have to learn to let that go and to let them share those one-on-one discussions with their own manager so that they can be in charge of their growth and not you. So I think empowering other people to have enough management skills to develop others is really where it's at. That's when you kind of take that whole next step to being able to trust and work your way right out of a position.
Do you have any specific examples you can share of, somebody in your company who you think developed or has developed well as a result of the way that you've set things up and how it probably maybe would not have happened if you didn't have these systems and processes in place for development?
Well, first of all, yes, I have great examples, but the reason, the base this all sits on is a culture where people trust each other. So let's just start with that. So let's say you have a culture where people are trusting of each other. So the example I'll use is Jim Rebholz, my production manager. Jim has worked for us as a carpenter for a long time. 2012, 2013, he was on a crew. I was on a site. He was pouring concrete. His brother's a subcontractor doing concrete. He came to work for us as a carpenter. Excellent carpenter, outstanding skills at running big jobs on old houses. That was his niche. So he worked his way up through that and was under Kevin Dunn, our production manager at the time. Kevin, when we reached a certain volume, came to me and said, I don't want to retire, but I really don't want to run this entire production thing anymore. So I looked for a replacement for Kevin. We we looked for a production, and Jim interviewed for that position as one of my lead carpenters, an outstanding lead. He was passed over for that spot. We went to somebody from the manufacturing industry, and I made a bad hire. I made a bad hire to run our production. Very nice guy, but didn't come from within. So for a couple of years, and Jim, by not getting that position and going back into lead carpenters, Kevin, who was the production manager, stayed in there as what we call a field manager underneath our production manager. Now, Jim, we let go of the production manager. We made our mistake. And Jim gets the position the second time he interviews for it. Now, Jim is part of my management team, is in control of 30 people in production, does an amazing job, is a great manager, still has Kevin underneath him, who didn't want to fully retire, wanted to stay here in a different role. I guess what I'm saying is he'll tell me to this day, I wasn't ready when I first interviewed. Now I'm ready, and I understand that I developed a couple of these other skills that I needed. And this is written up in his individual development plan. And him and I laugh about it all the time. I made a bad hire, and he was not part of that hire, but he had to work under that person. So it's nice that he can come to me now and say, here's why that didn't work. And here's what I'm going to do differently as the person. And he's very close with his guys. The other part is of emotional mastery is having high empathy. You don't want to give away the store, but you want to have high empathy with your staff and high empathy with our clients. Obviously, I think everybody in the industry wants that. So Jim's journey is just one. He left Neal's also for a year and a half. I call that a boomerang when somebody leaves here and comes back. So he's kind
Yes.
of excellent. We have 7 boomerangs here now. It's kind of a thing, but we always let people go try something. And then many, I would say 90% of them come back. They take a journey, right? So,
And I'm sure they're even more motivated and attached to the company when they come back. I think we have the same thing here, but it's I think most
yeah,
people when they boomerang, you're making such a specific choice that they know what they're getting into. I think is the other nice thing about that.
yeah,
Um, I always think it's a good sign of good leadership when you can admit the mistakes that you've made, as did with this hire that you moved on from. I think when we talked earlier, you talked a little bit about, being able to grow personally means getting uncomfortable and embracing uncomfortable things, difficult decisions. What are some of the things that were most uncomfortable for you when growing as a leader? And then what do you see, for the kind of the next generation in your family or just of the talent that you have on your team? What are the types of things that make people uncomfortable?
Well, I think once you get to know someone, my brothers got to know me, for instance, and how I manage. I manage very different than my brothers. We knew that. They weren't. So one of the things I learned from, they became very uncomfortable with the style I had. That I had a management team, for instance, that knew what was going on with every piece and part of this company, but my brothers actually didn't. They were still out selling, and I had a management team growing underneath them very fast and really more and more responsibility. So we came into this uncomfortable place where the staff was kind of more informed than they were in some ways with all the people and the hiring and everything else. So my lesson from that was they came to me and said, look, we're not comfortable, with this situation. My lesson was I didn't communicate with them enough about how I wanted to set up this management team and how much I was willing to delegate my duties to them and have them master them. I think made them uncomfortable, made my brothers uncomfortable. They accepted it, but they didn't see it in action. They were just out there selling and doing other things in the system. So I learned a lot about communication from that. So when everybody's growing around you, and my nephew goes through this. My nephew, is at this point, we have a non-family member who's also an owner. He is my heir apparent here at our company. And it's not my nephew. It's not my son. It's a non-family member. What I will tell you about getting uncomfortable, it means eating humble pie, getting a nice big piece and put it in front of you and putting some whipped cream on the humble pie and eating it with a smile and saying, I screwed up. I needed to learn this. I needed to grow. Your job when you run a business like this is to be a little bit vulnerable. You have to admit the stuff you screwed up. And I saw my dad just, he was so good being human about all that stuff and just being nice. And honestly, a sense of humor helps a lot. A good marriage and a sense of humor solves a whole lot in this business. But I would say that's kind of one of the examples that helped me learn.
You mentioned this management team and kind of that, I guess, communication or knowledge discrepancy, with your brothers for some time, right, as you're building the strong management team. I guess tell us a little bit about how you built that team. What does that team look like? How do you make sure that they're sort of successful and that the company, that they're the right people that are helping to, sail this ship in a positive direction now and, when you make your transition to your next step?
First thing I would say is give yourself years to build a management team, not months. Give yourself some time and some grace. Jim, I found as a production manager was outstanding. Finding a non-family member, Derek Ganaway from our office, is just a rising rock star in the industry. Putting him under my wing and making sure he understood early that you're excellent at managing people. Honestly, it's really kind of like my brothers did with me. Hey, you're good at this. You're doing it the style that makes sense with our culture. You're good at the people part. So I would say finding folks that are operationally excellent and that are emotionally intelligent and offering it to them, and then building out a path of growth for them. So each one of the folks, we have 4 people on our management team, including me. It's just me and 3 others. We meet once a week. We use a system called EOS, which is a very hot thing in the country right now, the Entrepreneur Operating System. We use software that has a very, very efficient, we've been in it about 5 years, very efficient weekly meeting, gets through all of our metrics, gets to all of our issues quickly. And that EOS structure has helped us with our strategic planning, our annual planning, our quarterly planning, and our weekly meeting. So there's a cadence to it. And I like things like that. If you're a good manager, you know how to have an excellent meeting that respects people's time. One little note I'll say, I give every one of these managers permissions to leave a meeting if it's not efficient for them. They do, and I want even my lead.
That's unusual and great. Very
You
unusual. Yeah.
need to give that grace to the people that are growing. If they see inefficiency, I think a lead carpenter should be able to just walk out of a meeting if the salesperson doesn't have things properly ready. Say, why don't you reschedule this when you're ready? I'm not ready to produce that job for you yet. I take another week and let's complete all the selections and do the other things we need to get this done. So I think that them being empowered and watching, their manager operate and wanting to be like what they're doing is really important. But I love my management team. It is a big step to empower them with everything they need to run this company. There are times when I'm not here and they can run things and call me if they need something, but really making everything about you running it is really, really difficult. And there's a freedom and a sense of peace that comes with a really well-oiled management team that's ready to take over things and ready to lead.
One of the phrases I really liked was that you said it works better to have a business family than a family business when you start growing. Maybe talk about the difference between the two to you.
Well, we're going through it right now here. When we were at 3 million and 5 million and working our way at, oh my gosh, we're at 10 million. And now when you get up to larger companies with a lot of people parts, you have to, as I mentioned with the humble pie discussion, you have to be ready to let others do that. When you're running a business family, our example would be my recognition that it isn't just set that my nephew's going to take my spot. It isn't just written in stone. I know he's wanted to do that since he was this tall, which is great, but he's not the right person right now to do that. So a person outside of the family, letting go of some of the control. Everybody who's a consultant out there will tell you, oh my gosh, don't ever give up any ownership. Don't ever give up any. I push back a little bit on that. I've given Derek 15% ownership. He is fully engaged in what we do. He is kind of in a 10-year training program to do what I do. There's nothing imminent, but if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, he's going to know what to do, and I'm going to have a plan written up for him to do that. So I would say being cognizant, being a business family is putting the company first. It's not a piggy bank for your use. It is here to serve the community. It is here to serve the people that work here because there's now almost 50 people relying on this. And when you spread out past those 50, there's probably 150 or 250 people relying on this business,
Right.
suppliers and everyone. So that ecosystem is pretty large. And when you make it about yourself or your marriage or your perks or whatever, it's not going to work. You're not going to get people that want to stay. So family business is great, right up until it's not. And, and then I think treating it like a business, my background's finance and business. That's what I studied in school. And you can look at every person watching this has got businesses in their local community that are well run, family businesses, and the stories that people whisper about the others. Oh my gosh, look what happened here. I would say I think you can learn more from them and getting in a local group, getting in a national peer group. If you're in an RA or if you're in some kind of really good group, talk to people about what they're doing and what they did wrong. The good ones will want to share what they did wrong with you, and you can learn from it.
I think that's great advice. When I guess being the CEO, it can be stressful, can be lonely. What do you do to maintain balance in your own life? What do you like to do outside of work, and how do you manage that?
Number one, it is easier to manage with a great management team. Back to our old point there. I think you can do it a lot better when you have some people you trust. I enjoy my job very much. I'm enjoying our growth, which I don't think I've been able to say that in the past. Sometimes growth just feels like pulling a hair out of your head. You can see I don't have any left, but I would say our latest run of growth, we feel more on top of it. We feel better about where we are. What I do, I think I like to get away. I like to do weekends away. My kids are grown. I have one child working here, Jimmy. He's great. He's 28. I enjoy Tuesday lunches with my dad for the last 30 plus years. My dad, my brothers, and I go to lunch every Tuesday. We talk about everything. And I think that level of communication and trust is important. I'm blessed with a great family. My wife, Mary Kay, works for the company as well. She's been here for a long time and keeps the books. We both enjoy our work. And do we take it home? A little bit, but it doesn't cause too much stress. Back when I told you that Roger recorded our family history, it was very funny that a lot of husband and wife teams in our family's history have done businesses together, including my mom and dad and their parents, et cetera. And being able to do that and raise kids and have a good business is really, really hard. So I think you've got to give yourself, I have a lot of faith. Number one, my faith's important to me, but also enjoying yourself and being able to get away a little bit. I think it can be unhealthy when you're there 24/7. And I think when you start having the comfort level of letting your staff have enough paid time off, it makes you feel okay with having your time off too. As a company, we got to be fresh every day to be able to deliver an amazing client experience. It's not easy to do that every day. So I think being away a little bit, getting a little time off. I don't have any grandkids yet, but I think I got one on the way. It's very early. So I'm just looking forward to this phase. And we've been very, very fortunate.
That's really lovely. So I have to ask, because I think you told me you are working on a book.
Oh
You
gosh,
enjoy
yeah.
writing. Tell us a little bit about that.
Hardest thing I've ever done. Been kind of messing around with it for 10 years. My book is not a self-help book. It's not about design, build, remodeling. It's a novel. So I started making notes and it came up with a story in my head. My wife I saw the manuscript for my book I was away for the weekend and I got back. My wife was not with me and I saw the manuscript laying in the kitchen and I'm like, she might have been reading it. My wife's a voracious reader. So I want her to read it. I have no idea if this thing's going to be published or if it's even a good story, but it feels good to get that side of my brain some time and to be creative. Sometimes I could sit down and write for hours on end, but it's a novel. It's kind of an exciting little suspense-filled novel that I came up with, and There are some days when I enjoy doing that. I don't do it often enough, or I would have been done by now. I'm a little embarrassed to say I'm writing a book because it's been 10 years, but I'm getting closer. So we'll see.
I love it. No, I mean, it's great to have another outlet that's got nothing to do with your day to day. And it's great that your wife can be a little bit of a part of that. I hope I get to read it someday.
I've got the guts to show it to you.
No, this has just been an incredible, I think, example of how to, run a business well, but also think specifically multi-generation businesses. And I have a friend that used to work with family businesses to help with all of the dynamics and the drama that happens, and right, and all of the things that you brought up, the family charter, and many don't go as well, I will say, as yours has. So I think it's a real testament to, maybe it sounds like your father's sort of warmth and generosity and kind of kindness informed a lot of the culture of your company and has helped maintain a happy family. I mean, the fact that you guys go to lunch every Tuesday all together, right? I think something every family would aspire to. And I sure wish my kids were closer and, and I could do that. So I think that's super lovely. Any final words to somebody who's kind of struggling with a family business or family issues, and how to work through it and stay sane?
First of all, recognizing that it's hard. It's not easy. My story sounds like, oh my gosh, it's just ours has been hard. We've had some really, really difficult things to do. Family members coming in and out of the business, nephews, nieces, kids. Never let it overwhelm you enough. I would say that the partner you should trust the most is your spouse. And you should just first of all, gratitude is really helpful. Be very thankful that we have such a great country and such great business models. Design build's a great business to be in. We really, really have a lot to be thankful for in the industry for that. And then I would say finding mentors, finding people to kind of look at you and go, that's not the way you want to do it. And I would say also relying on people outside the industry, because every city's got these amazing family businesses. I'll bet most of them are willing to sit down and have lunch with you. If you're not having lunch with your mom and dad, do it right now. I said so. And that should be a thing. I think ours has been blessed because my dad's still alive at 93. I still know that I'm going to be at lunch with him tomorrow. And I know it tomorrow. He's not going to dig really hard. In fact, all we talk about are grandkids and babies and great grandkids and stuff. But there's something about that accountability to someone. So if you're the one that started it, look at your son or your production manager and ask them to go to lunch. Make sure you're always talking and be kind. You got to be kind and you got to meet people where they're at. It is a difficult thing to grow and be successful, but it's also amazing when you can have it happen the right way and have a team that's operating at a high level. So that would be my advice.
Excellent. And if there are folks out there who kind of struggling with this, can they reach out to you for
Oh,
advice?
yes, absolutely. Alan at neals.com, neals.com. If anybody needs a copy of the family charter, wants a little help with, hey, I've got this. There's no shortage of issues, but I am happy to speak to anyone about it that needs help.
That's very generous and lovely of you. And Ellen, this has been an incredible conversation, and I can't thank you enough for being with us today and sharing your story.
I appreciate it.
This series is brought to you by Houzz Pro. To learn more about our best-in-class software for winning clients, managing projects, and simplifying your workflow, visit houzz.com/pro.